What's up everyone, my name is Gus and welcome to the channel. A couple of videos ago, I shared 5 simple techniques that you can incorporate in your gameplay to improve in Splatoon 3. This video is a sequel to that video where we'll be going over tips on how to improve in this game aside from just improving your mechanics. For today, I invited Trey, also known as Apple, a competitive player for Hades, to share his experience on how to improve in Splatoon 3. I've shared before on my channel how I have personally improved, but I think it's important to share other perspectives so you guys can see that people improve in different ways and at different paces. If you haven't watched that 5 simple techniques video, make sure to watch it after or before. Also, if you found Trey's advice helpful or if you'd like to share what helped you in your competitive journey, let me know in the comments. We are getting closer to 5K subscribers, so make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. With that out of the way, let's get started with the video. Before going into the conversation that I had with Trey, I do want to note that these tips are under the context of playing the game in a competitive environment, where you actively play with teams and in tournaments. Even though his advice is in the context of competitive Splatoon, I still think it applies in a solo queue environment for Splatoon because this really is about getting in the right mindset to improve in a multiplayer game. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Improving in this game takes some time and everyone improves at different paces. That's why I decided to invite someone who could give you a different perspective from mine. Now, if you're not familiar with competitive Splatoon, you might be asking yourself, well, who is Trey? He's a competitive Splatoon player who specializes in the shooter weapon class. He's made a name for himself, becoming one of the most well-known 52 gal players for his aggressive spacing and movement. Since joining the scene, he has won tournaments such as Low Ink, Squid Junction, and Paddling Pool, among others, and has been on teams such as TDFO and is currently on Hades. Trey's rise to high-level competition didn't just happen overnight. It took some time. So how did a player who won Low Ink, the most prominent and well-known low-level tournament, go on to win Paddling Pool, the longest-running Splatoon tournament that features high-level competition? Well, let's hear from his experiences. When Trey was attempting to become a better player, one of the first things he did was study how to play his specific weapons. And the best way for him to do this was asking people that had more experience than him with the weapon or weapon class. Here's what he had to say.
If I'm being 100% honest, I just studied the way people played my weapon and just went from there. And then when I felt confident, I asked people above me, like for example, Synapse, he's another good 52 player. I asked him, yo, what can I do to be better with 52 in certain situations? And he's helped me a lot. And it's gotten to a point where like I feel like I can go toe-to-toe with him at some points. I don't feel like I can always go toe-to-toe with him, but like I was taking some bad losses and some tough like positioning mistakes, but like afterwards I was just like, you know what, I think I just need some help in some certain spots. And yeah, you gotta patch it as you go. Just patch up the holes in your gameplay. Yeah. And it will show so much over time.
Sometimes getting better at your weapon, whether it's splatter shot, slosher, stamper, or any other weapon, it isn't just about grinding hours and hours of playing the game. Sometimes it's getting insight from other players on how to abuse the strengths of your main weapon and minimize its weaknesses. The more familiar you become with the strengths and limitations of your main, the more you'll come to realize how much you can impact the game. Trey could have learned this all on his own as he continued to play the game, but by reaching out to someone who is more knowledgeable with the weapon, he got insight sooner rather than later. And to be honest, I feel like this advice has really shown in his gameplay, because of how well he does in taking space from the enemy. And even though he reached out specifically about 52 gal, he learned more about his role as a slayer, which helps him in his gameplay with splattershot and splash and other shooter type weapons. Overall, be sure to reach out to players with similar weapon classes as yourself. You might learn something new. Advice comes in all shapes and forms, but one of the things that Trey stressed during my conversation with him is being willing to take criticism.
Be willing to take criticism. A lot of people, I've been on a couple of teams. Well, I've been on a couple of teams that lasted a very short amount of time, but you have to be willing to take criticism and you need to learn from it. A lot of people I've seen, they just don't take criticism and they just act bluntly towards their team, shift blame. It's genuinely not a good thing to do, especially in a team environment. That's how teams crumble.
Sometimes it's hard being told what is wrong with your gameplay. Rather than taking the blame for yourself, you probably think it's your teammates' faults, and honestly, that's not the best mentality because as he said, this is a team game at the end of the day. You can't do everything by yourself, so being critical with your own gameplay, whether it's reviewing your own replay codes or having someone coach you and tell you the truth, could help you in the long run. Now, it's not just about getting criticism, but learning from it as well. And please remember that these things take time. You may not be able to fix these mistakes quickly, but it's better to be critical, aware of your problems, and be willing to fix them than being in denial and shifting blame away to others rather than yourself. Trey really emphasized this advice as being key to being a better player because it leads you to becoming a better teammate. And lastly, I feel like this is the best advice he shared with me during our conversation because it helps put in perspective that Splatoon 3 at its core is really about team building. Sometimes it's very important to know what weapons and people you like playing with, not just because it covers your weaknesses, but to help you build chemistry and improve in the long run.
Knowing what works, what you work with well and what you don't work with well is something really good to have. For example, I play a lot of shooters. So like having a weapon that has a lot of AoE, so like for example a slosher, machine, blaster, you name it. Being able to know what you don't like playing with is another thing that's really good to have. Before I became a FA, I was on a team Decay for a short time, and like I was not in a good spot as a player there. Like it was a very bad decision for me to join the team. No hate to the players there. The players there were really good. I just didn't know how to work with their weapons, so I just left. And it's okay as long as you're not rude about it. Like you just have to know when it's a good time to like sit people down and be like, hey, I don't really think this is working. I feel like I'm not the right person for this spot on this team.
To provide context on his experiences, during his time as a free agent, he was actively looking for a team. He joined a team called Decay, but realized that the synergy between him and the team did not work well. Decay, which later went on to rebrand as Sweet Tooth, needed a player that could help their Octobrush shark their way into the fights. So having a 52 player that mainly tried to rush in to take space did not make the most sense for the team at the time. The team's and Apple's win conditions and priorities were different. It's no shade to any of the players involved, but sometimes team synergy just doesn't happen, and that's completely okay. Sweet Tooth went on to have an incredible run with the new player that they recruited, and Apple went on to form Hades. Learn what you like to play with, and learn what you don't like to play with. For example, as he mentioned, he likes playing with AoE weapons such as sloshers and blasters because it synergizes the most with his weapon pool, which is one of the reasons he formed Hades with players such as Adapt, who is known for being an aggressive slosher and blaster player. It's okay to leave a team that you feel doesn't fit you. It's okay to disband. It's okay to join a team that works for you. This is the process of playing in competitive Splatoon.